Ladies and gentlemen, Cast of the Past is back. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Season 6 of Cast of the Past, the time-traveling podcast where we take a look at old video games in a new light to see if they're still worth playing or if they're just big piles of garbage. My name's Josh.
And I'm Tom. And Josh, are you my boy or am I your boy?
Oh, well, Wario's our boy.
No, stop it. What hell
Yes.
am I living in?
Today,
Anyway.
oh boy, do we have an episode for you. If you didn't get all the hints and whatnot and see the title of this video or podcast before you clicked on it.
I mean, I don't know about you, but when I open Spotify, I just slap my screen until something plays.
Today, we are going to be talking about God of War 2018, but not just me and you, Tom. We have a very, very special guest that we've been teasing for a long time here.
Yes, that's right. At the tail end of this episode, we are going to have a discussion with Greg Miller, formerly of Up at Noon and IGN, and currently the big old daddy over at Kinda Funny Games. He graciously had us over on the community podcast day at Kinda Funny Games, and we had a nice discussion with him about the legacy of God of War, and that is going to be the kind of big finale of this episode. So keep listening. You're going to hear some really good stuff.
God of War 2018.
Yes, God of War 10.
Yes. I would like to start talking about this game, but we can't talk about the game without the nitty gritty.
Oh boy. All right, let's get into it. God of War 2018, as it is colloquially known, was released, funnily enough, in 2018 on April 20th for the PlayStation 4. It was developed by Santa Monica Studios and published by Sony Interactive Entertainment. And, sometimes we get a chance to specifically call out the director of a game. Sometimes directors in gaming make a big enough of impression that you can't talk about a game without talking about them. And this was directed by Cory Barlog. This was later ported to Windows on January 14th of this year, 2022. And the mod scene for it has been quite hilarious, Josh. I don't know if you've seen CJ from GTA San Andreas fighting Baldur, but man, it's something. It's something, I'll tell you.
So this game came out on 420, baby. Blaze it.
Imagine getting high and then seeing the world serpent in this game. Like, oh,
whoa.
As I joked, I just gotta say, the 10th God of War game, Josh, even though, main canon-wise, this is kind of God of War 4.
Yeah.
10 games. How many of the games before this had you played?
God of War 1 and God of War 2.
Can you name any of the other ones?
God of War 3.
Right. Can you name any of the other ones?
Chains of Olympus, Ghosts of Sparta, Ascension.
Did you freaking just write these down?
No, I just knew them.
Oh, wow. Okay. I was like,
because
damn it.
Those two were on the PSP. Well, the first two were on the PSP. The third one was on the PS3.
Correct.
Wow. That's the only ones that I remember.
Okay. Well, there are two text-based games. Well, one's a text-based game, and one is called an alternate reality game. You think those are going to take off, Josh? AR games? You think that's ever going to become a thing?
One day. One day. When I get my Game Boy Advance out and I have the little those little AR cards that came with them.
Yeah,
little swipe.
Oh, you mean the 3DS with the AR cards?
Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah, not the Game Boy Advance.
Remember Face Invaders, or what was that called? That game where you could put your friends' faces on little robots that were like, whoa. Do you remember that on the 3DS?
Yeah, I remember it.
We gotta do an episode about that. That
no,
should
we
be
don't.
That should be part of season 6, baby. About an hour and a half on Face Invaders. But yes, so there is God of War, A Call from the Wilds, which was a Facebook Messenger game, I shit you not, on February 1st, 2018. So 2 months before this game came out. It is a prequel story, and it is about Atreus on his first adventure in the Norse wilds. And of course, we all remember how that game set incredible sales records and just blew up everywhere. Mm-hmm. And then
it dethroned Farmville.
Finally, somebody did it.
Yeah.
And then God of War 9, Mimir's Vision, is a as I said, alternate reality game on April 17th, 2018. So 3 days before this. And it provides background for the Norse setting of God of War. So basically 2 little table setting titles to get you, in the mood for where we're going with this. Because the initial God of War games, the ones you all mentioned, they are all, Greek mythology. And what happens to the Greek gods in those games, Josh?
Oh, they all die.
At whose hands?
I would say Kratos, yeah.
Kratos' hands.
Just angry yelling Kratos, though.
Mm-hmm. And here we have Norse mythology. So I have a quick question for you, Josh. Where are you, or what's your thought process on Kratos as, a gaming icon, a kind of a mascot for Sony? I mean, he was in PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale. What do you think of the character?
That's all you needed. With Kratos, he was a part of that late 2000s, early 2010s mascot run, right? You had Marcus Phoenix, you had Kratos, you had... trying to think of... I mean, I guess you could consider like the Big Daddy. You had Ezio from Assassin's Creed. Like, you had all of these big kind of staples when it came to franchises at that time that were marketing staples, I would say. Because like it was like, hey, get the PlayStation 2, right? And why should I get the PlayStation 2? Well, look at this game. Look at Kratos. And like God of War 1 came out, and then like immediately after God of War 2 came out, and it looked like a better version of God of War 1. And then God of War 3 came out on PlayStation 3, and it looked like a better version of God of War 2. And it's just like, okay, like these games kind of just, it was like more of the same, really. And that's why I think I stopped after the second one. But Kratos overall in general, like he was, I think, that end of the PlayStation 2, early PlayStation 3 mascot for Sony.
Kratos, Sony went all in on him, and he fits the time period very appropriately. If you think of, our high school days when darkness, edginess, and emo-ness was really big, who was more emo than Kratos? A guy who had it so bad that he kills all the Greek gods who screwed him over, and then is like, well, nothing to do now but just fall off a cliff. Bye, everybody. Who was more emo?
How could this happen to me?
Kratos sitting there listening to Helena as he's just chopping up Medusas.
I liked the first 2 God of War games, but like I said, it just got to the point where it was the same thing over and over again, and the gameplay style kind of got a little repetitive and stale for me.
A lot of quick time events, a lot of hack and slash combat, a lot of interesting puzzle solving. I'm not going to lie. What I remember from God of War is how distinct the puzzles and the dungeon layouts were in that game. Because I remember at the time there was a lot of jokes, particularly at the expense of the Zelda franchise, where it was like, hey, Link, welcome to a God of War dungeon. You're not going to find any blinking weak spots here. Haha.
Yeah.
It was kind of considered the grown-ups, action adventure game.
Yeah, and it was, the gameplay was in the style of that like Devil May Cry or Bayonetta style game, where it was very arcadey, over the top, but it felt really good.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
and it was one of those like first games that I can remember where the scale of the boss fights actually meant something. From the first game of fighting the Hydra to going and fighting Ares to going and fighting Zeus on top of the mountain, or like the giant Hercules statue or anything like that. Like there was such a scale to it. And I remember the opening of God of War 3 where you're running up the Titans, and the Titans are massive. And it's like, well, hold on, like these things are insane, and I never saw a scale in a game the way that they did it, like in those series, those games in general.
And I just remember just how ridiculously over the top the concept was. Like when God of War 2 ends, I remember everyone in high school talking about the cliffhanger. It's Kratos unleashed all the Titans, and they're climbing up Mount Olympus, and Kratos is like, Zeus, your son is going to kill you. And the hype for part 3 is like, part 3 is going to reveal why there are no more Greek gods, because Kratos freaking killed them all. So that's what ended up happening. He kills Zeus, ultimately, who turned out to have been Kratos' father, because who didn't Zeus bang?
That's true.
Zeus was gross, so everyone is his child. And that ends, and again, very emo. Kratos kills his father and everyone who betrayed him, and then he's like, well, I can't stick around in Greece anymore. It makes me too sad. And he wanders off north, Josh. And that's where we start here with the story of God of War 2018. You want to talk the opening?
Hold on a second.
What's up?
You got to talk about the story that happens in between. Who did Kratos meet on his way to the Norse mythology? A little knight that doesn't use a sword. He uses a shovel, Tom.
A shovel blade, yes. Josh, you want to tell him about the cameo in Shovel Knight?
It is actual lore that Cory Barlog has confirmed that on Kratos' way, Kratos stumbles upon a brave knight that is Shovel Knight. And it is actually in the lore that Kratos and Shovel Knight have met and fought and like respect each other, which I think is amazing. But if you play the PlayStation 4 or PlayStation 5 version of Shovel Knight, you are actually able to fight Kratos in the game, and you are able to get abilities that Kratos has, very similar to like the Blades of Chaos in the game. So I think that's just awesome that not only does an indie title get the respect from a big AAA game or company like this, but the fact that it's also included in the story is just amazing to me.
Hell yeah. And as we all know, Yooka-Laylee also part of the God of War canon because Yooka-Laylee met Shovel Knight in Yooka-Laylee.
That's true. That's true.
Therefore, they all cross over. But that's very cool. And, we have a little Shovel Knight episode in our backlog. You should check it out. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Mm-hmm.
Kratos wanders up north. He wants to get away from all of the violence he's seen and experienced in his life. And where do we find him at the start of this game of God of War 2018, Josh?
He's just chopping down trees in the middle of the forest. He has his own little cabin. Nice little cabin there. But yes, he is up in Midgard. His little son, Atreus. Mm-hmm. And they are in the process of burying/burning his mother/wife. Atreus' mother.
I was going to say, specified.
Yeah. As they're burning the body, it is revealed that she had one last request, and that was for her ashes to be spread across the highest mountain in all of Midgard.
Well, I forget if she said in all of Midgard or all the land, because that plays into a twist later in the game. But you are correct. The initial journey is we have to spread Mom's ashes. And when we start, there's also...
go to Disney World and spread her ashes.
I mean, I guess people do that.
People do that. They call it's what, like Code White or something like that?
Are you serious?
According to the New York Post, one of the worst things you can hear a cast member say at the Disney World resorts is white powder alert. A white powder alert means that a guest has brought the ashes of their dearly departed in order to make the happiest place on earth their final resting place.
And they just let them spread them wherever in the park? Or is there a designated area?
They try to prevent that from happening, and sometimes they vacuum them up.
Imagine you die, and then a few days later, you're hitting a kid on Mr. Toad's Wild Ride in the face, and then you're being sucked into a shop vac. But, back to basics. Yes, the beginning of the quest is the spreading of the ashes of Kratos' wife, Atreus' mother, Faye's ashes. And what's the relationship between Kratos and Atreus like at the start of this game, Josh?
It's very tense, very quiet, very demanding. It's really hard coming into it because if you were a fan of the series prior, you knew the stuff that Kratos went through. So you understood why he was so stern and why he was the way he was. But if this was your first time into it, you're like, man, Kratos is kind of a dick. Right. He's just a bully to his kid. And like, why is this kid even put up with him? Like, it's a great setup for the story and for the conflict between father and son for old gamers and for newcomers.
So, right. It's a classic dynamic that you can see in a lot of other stories. You've got the stern, masculine man's man kind of a father versus the softer mama's boy child. I mean, look, Atreus clearly liked Faye more than Kratos. We get that a lot. But, they still have that familial connection, but it's really not there. And, yes, as you said, it's really tense. There's a lot of unspoken feelings. Clearly, neither of them are able to handle the loss of Faye, who seems like she probably was a mediator in the family. And their quest begins with Kratos trying to kind of give Atreus some tips and also keeping an eye on Atreus because he's coughing a lot, Josh. You notice how much he's coughing?
Yeah.
And he's not washing his hands?
He's got the black lung pop.
Oh no, he's been down in the mines too much. Yeah, but Kratos... Yes. But Atreus has this unspecified sickness that we learn the origins of throughout the game, but it holds him back on several occasions, and it makes Kratos comment on his weakness. You're weak, you're not up for this adventure. And Atreus is always like, no, I can do it. You can't just, push me back like this. And that's a lot of the back and forth. I want to talk about like the moment, and we mentioned it with Greg, but it's like the first moment in the game that just cements what this father-son story is. And it is when Kratos is teaching Atreus how to hunt, and they find this like mythical deer, a mythical buck, and Atreus hits it with his bow, but he doesn't kill it. So Kratos is like, well, finish the job, put it out of its misery. And Atreus can't do it. So Kratos, mercy kills this creature and then tries to comfort his son, who's clearly ashamed of his weakness, but fails. Like, he goes to like, reaches out, he's like, I'm going to put my hand on your shoulder. But Kratos is too proud, too tough to like get that vulnerable with his son. What did you think about that moment? Because I think that's one of, if not the most important moment in the game.
Yeah, I think that was great because it showed that Kratos was doing it for Atreus. He wasn't doing it to be a dick. He was doing it to be a father. He was doing it to like kind of, he wanted to tell him that it's okay that this stuff happens, but he didn't want to show any weakness because he wanted Atreus to grow up to be strong. And that is, it was very difficult to relay that into a video game or into a cutscene or something like that. But the way that they did it, how quiet, how subtle, and how quick it was, where like you can see the emotion in Kratos' faces. I want to comfort my son, but at the same time, if I do, that's going to say that it's okay to show weakness in a time like this. And while it's tiptoeing around a very heavy topic of, when is it okay for a man to show emotion? You know what I mean? Like it's one of those things, like as society, you're supposed to be a manly man. You're supposed to go to Lowe's every Sunday morning.
Yes.
I got to buy lumber, right? And it's not always that simple, right? Like people have emotions and you sometimes need to comfort people or be comforted yourself. And I think that was a great thing to show that Kratos does mean good with what he's attempting to do.
I completely agree with you on all points. And I think it's also important in what we were talking about earlier about what Kratos was before this game. He's just this anger machine. He had a tragic backstory, but the tragic backstory just, made him angry. All I knew of Kratos before this game was smash, rip, tear, revenge. And in here, it's like having a quiet, realistic moment where you don't know how to communicate with a family member. And it's like, holy shit, that's so well delivered.
Yeah.
And something else you said it without saying it, I think, but you pointed out Kratos, he's walking a line with being a father versus a dad. And I think at the beginning of this game, I would say Kratos is an adequate father, but he's not a good dad to Atreus. And I think that does change throughout the course of this game, but this is where you kind of get that completely. So they go home after their hunting trip, and who shows up at their door?
A stranger.
Is he selling them anything?
He is not selling them anything. This guy comes out and he's walking around. He's like, listen, man, I was on Sons of Anarchy. What are you going to do about it? And
he looks like Aleister Black.
Yeah, he really does. He starts hinting and talking like he knows who Kratos is, or he's aware of where Kratos has come from, and like they're tiptoeing around with Kratos's past, which like at the time I was thinking like, is this a sequel or is this a reboot? And when he started talking about, his past, and like I said somebody was here or somebody different or somebody not from this part or whatnot. I'm like, oh shit, like this is a legit sequel. And I liked it. And that fight with the stranger, we're not gonna say his name yet, but it was like a superhero fight, and I thought it was awesome.
Yeah. So I would just remember being blown away by how this fight plays out, because the gimmick you slowly find out is that your opponent, this boss fight, he's invincible. He's nigh invulnerable, some would say. And no matter how many big beefy punches Kratos throws into him, or suplexes, or throwing him through mountains, this guy just will not die. And he can dish it as well as he can take it, while also just smack talking you the whole time. An incredible fight, the way it kind of transitions between like cinematic moments and then back to gameplay. Really fun. And that changes Kratos's whole perspective, because he's like, it doesn't matter if I think Atreus is weak or not. We are now being hunted, so we have to go on this quest to scatter your mother's ashes, because also we have to figure out who's hunting us and also get away from them. So that's the motivation. You're being chased, but also you have a purpose. And I thought that worked really, really well in terms of the game.
And while you're on your adventure, you come across some of the most lovely, charming NPCs in recent gaming memory. Brock and his brother Sindri, they're great. They're they're blacksmiths. They're brothers, but they hate each other.
Yes, they are mythical dwarf blacksmiths from actual Norse mythology. So this is where the game really is starting to tie everything in. And what kind of purpose do they serve in this game, Josh?
They are your forefront to upgrading your material, upgrading your weapons, upgrading your outfits, stuff like that, with both Kratos and Atreus. So you want to get better bows, you want to get better stamina or whatever, this is where you would go. You'd go to these two guys. And they both sold different things, is one thing I really liked about that too. But they don't talk about the other one because they hate each other.
Family drama. Again, family members who don't know how to, reconcile with each other.
Then you have the wonderful Freya, who you discover. She's a witch inside of this big tree type
on top
thing.
Of a turtle.
On top of a turtle.
That was one of, if we talk about impressive visuals in this game, that was one of the most stunning moments, is when you see this tree and then it rises and you realize it's a big old turtle that she kind of lives in a house that's attached to the turtle. And I was like, this game.
Yeah, it's the third stage of Turtwig.
There you go. Yeah, Torterra. She lives in a Torterra. Okay.
You go through, you find while there's some great NPCs that are helping you, there are some other characters that are not so nice to you.
We got Modi and Magni, the sons of Thor. And who are they voiced by? Do you know, Josh?
Oh my God, come on. Like, they're voiced by the people who are in every video game. You got Nolan North and Troy Baker. The dynamic duo of gaming.
I think it's crazy that you have two supporting villains and you get two titans of video game acting to play them. It's like, oh, here's two side characters, and who do we have playing them? Oh yes, Daniel Day-Lewis and Meryl Streep, just hanging out in the supporting cast. It's
so great. And you got probably my favorite character of the entire game, which was Mimir.
Yes. So Mimir becomes basically the third person in your party in a way. They are a all-seeing, all-knowing figure in Norse mythology who you meet about halfway through the game. So let's kind of get back to story descriptions. When you meet Freya, the witch in the woods, she instantly knows who Kratos is. She's like,
you're a god. Here.
Yeah, you're a god from another realm. Why are you here? What the F are you doing? And then realizes, wait a minute, you have a kid, so he's half god. And Kratos, what's Kratos' opinion about Atreus knowing his
don't tell him. Don't let him know. He shouldn't know.
So he's keeping that a secret from Atreus. And Freya starts playing a helpful part in the narrative. She helps you get to other realms using the Bifrost, which my first exposure to that, honestly, was Thor, the Marvel Thor movies, where Idris Elba's Heimdall, controls the Rainbow Bridge to other realms. And here it's represented by this really freaking cool ass room. Like, what did you think the first time you saw the Bifrost room, Josh?
Oh my God. It was overwhelming. Like it was just like, whoa.
Like if you needed to see like an example of how video gaming might be the best way to tell a story, the way that kind of the tree Yggdrasil kind of unfolds the world tree and the way the roots are going over the room while you're walking and examining it, I was like, this is beautiful.
Yeah.
Absolutely beautiful.
One thing I want to add really quick too, before we dive too much into it. This is one of the first games that I remember giving you the option if you wanted to play performance or quality.
Oh, really? Okay.
Like, this is the first game that I remember playing where it's like, do you care about the graphics or do you care about like the frame rate of the game?
Okay.
And I was like, oh man, like I never thought about that. And I know you got your PC gamers. Oh, if it ain't 60 frames per second, I'm not gonna play any game like this.
Atreus and Kratos reach the top of the highest mountain in Midgard, in their backyard, basically, and they get to the top of it. And first and foremost, they start talking to this dude who's tied to a tree, and as you said, that is Mimir, who is this all-knowing, all-seeing figure who Odin, the god of all Norse mythology, has, tied to this tree as like a curse. It's like, you are stuck here because I freaking hate you, but I need you still. I need your knowledge. I need your skills. And you just like, hey, how about I cut your head off and tie you to my belt and you come with me? And Mimir's like, I'm down with that.
Yeah.
And what does Mimir reveal about their quest?
That this is far from over.
Yes. Well, he reveals that
you got about halfway of the game left to go.
He does. Because I remember being like, this is it? Like, this is meaty, but this seems too soon. But Mimir hears them say, Faye wanted us to spread her ashes from the highest mountain in the realm. And he says, well, this is not the highest mountain in the realm. And they're like, what are you talking about? There's no higher peaks. And he goes, the realm includes Jotunheim, the land of the giants. And right across this little mountaintop here, oh, look, there's the gate to Jotunheim. The gate's closed. It's not that simple. And thus we kind of start the next half of this game where we're
why would a video game make things so simple? Like, oh, there's your end part. Okay, I'm just going to walk to it. Like, there's never anything that gets in your way. There's never any other side quests. There's never any, like...
Yeah.
It's never that simple.
For real. But you have to go on a quest to open this gate and defeat the enemies that might go through the gate after you, basically. Again, it's a dual-purpose thing. It's like, well, we have to open the gate to Jotunheim, but at the same time, we know we're being chased and we can't risk them coming in after us. So, the Stranger has now teamed up. He's formed a stable with Thor's sons, Magni Modi and Magni, the shield of Midgard. And at this point, we also find out who the Stranger is. Josh, who is this nigh invulnerable man?
So, the Stranger is Baldur, which was actually really cool when I found that out. I was like, oh shit, I know Baldur.
Yeah, I remember when I started playing this and I had the fight with the Stranger, you asked me, you're like, who do you think that is? And I was like, Loki? I mean, what other popular Norse gods could he be? And you were like, you're going to find out. So yes, it is Baldur, brother of Thor, son of Odin, and he's teamed up with his nephews and they're trying to hunt you down. So you have to start going to more realms. Obviously, you've got to get magical artifacts. You have to defeat enemy obstacles.
MacGuffin.
Mm-hmm. No, you're right. Absolutely. And then you reach a point where you find out a terrible truth about not just Baldur, but someone else we've met on our adventure. And what is that terrible truth, Josh?
Freya is Baldur's mommy.
Yes, she was one of Odin's wives who gave birth to Baldur. And what did she do that basically destroyed her relationship with her son?
She made him invincible. Like, it's weird that it's a blessing and a curse at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You hate to see it.
There was a prophecy about his death, so she cast a spell of invulnerability on him so that he would not feel pain, but he didn't feel anything. He's like the bad guy from James Bond, The World Is Not Enough. He can't feel, he can't taste, And he resents her for it because he's like, wow, you kept me alive, but like, I can't enjoy food. I can't make love. He's like, this is bullshit. This is bullshit, Mom.
Right.
I can't believe it. You grounded me like this.
At what cost? You know what I mean? Like it's
right. And I'm not trivializing it. It's messed up. Like, of course, really messed up. And then,
but at the same time, well, hold on. You say it's messed up, right? But how far would you go to make sure that your kids were safe?
True. And it plays into the themes of this game, like the family bonds, Freya did something messed up for what she thought was a good reason, and you have Kratos who keeps secrets from his son for what he thinks are good reasons. It's
right.
all... Everything plays into what this game's going for overall. So back to Atreus and Kratos. The fight with Modi and Magni brings out Atreus' inner power, and then kind of breaks him in a way. He has this moment where Kratos is about to get killed, and he hulks out. He goes Super Saiyan, but his body kind of crumples from it, because he's still
young.
Weak.
Yeah.
And what happens here? What gets triggered here, Josh?
So Kratos kind of loses his shit, and then has to save Atreus, and while he's doing that, they have to go back to Freya, and then Freya says that the only way to cure this is pretty much going to Hell.
Yes, the Norse version of Hell, which it's just Hel, isn't it?
I think so. Helheim.
Helheim, there we go. Wow, Christianity, how creative.
But no, and going to Helheim, it's a very cold and very scary place, and there's no weapons in this world that will be able to defeat what lies in Helheim. But Kratos knows of one weapon or two.
And where are these weapons, Josh? How does he get them?
So Kratos has to take a boat ride back to his house. Kratos goes and uncovers that underneath the house that they've lived in, the blades of chaos were buried there.
Yes, his weapons, his cursed weapons from the first games.
We talked about it with Greg that we were getting goosebumps. I just got goosebumps again just talking about it. It's such an amazing piece of just cinematics in gaming that all it is just basic dialogue. The music hitting, the world around you is just kind of slowly changing, and it's like Kratos is like, this shows Kratos as a father. You know what I mean? Like, he's going to do anything and everything under in his power to save his kid, even if that has to mean reliving the past.
Absolutely. So he gets the blades of chaos, and he goes on a highway to Helheim, chops his way through there. He picks up this magical kind of flame element that Freya needs to concoct a potion to save Atreus. And before he goes, he has a little confrontation with the ghost of his daddy-o, Zeus. And that's when Mimir figures out who he is. He's like, oh, I knew you were different, but you're Zeus's son? What the F? Why? You know what I mean? So we get back up, we cure Atreus, have another kind of intense conversation with Freya about what you're doing and the secrets you're keeping are bad. And Atreus overhears this. And then we have what I think is an incredibly touching moment, an incredibly powerful moment, is like Atreus is just like, I get it. I'm not good enough. And I never will be. Because I heard what you said. And Kratos is like, no. You misunderstood what you heard, and I gotta come clean with you. And he tells him, you're half god. I used to be a god, and that makes you half a god, and that's why he was sick. Oh, that's why he was sick. Freya basically says, your son's gonna keep being sick because, like, mentally he's repressing what he could be, and it's destroying his body.
Yeah.
So Kratos tells him the truth, and Atreus starts feeling better. But what else comes about in his personality, Josh?
This kind of goes to Atreus's head a little bit, thinking that he's invincible now. So he kind of gets a little too carried away with certain people and characters in the game, where he turns into a little murdering bastard.
He turns into Kratos 1.0.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Kratos is like, no, don't do that. Bad.
Gets the water bottle and sprays him.
But again, now, like, we've got this father-son dilemma where Kratos has finally opened up to Atreus, but Atreus is handling the news the wrong way, and Kratos is like, calm down, and, more interesting parenting going on. They finally have their the final encounter with Baldur, who is caught up with them. And what happens, Josh?
Baldur gets got by the that's the leaf, the plant.
Mistletoe.
The mistletoe, which was given to Freya. Gave it to him, right? Or no, Freya hated the fact that he had that.
Yeah, basically, so this is like a beautiful piece of like Chekhov's gun stuff in storytelling in this. There's a point early in the game where the strap for Atreus's bow breaks, and Kratos is like, oh, here. And he grabs the stem of a mistletoe plant, and he just ties it together, and he's like, there you go. There, now that won't fall off. And there's a point later in the game where Freya sees a mistletoe plant and kind of freaks out about it. She's like, get rid of that. Get rid of that. I don't want to see that here.
Yeah.
Oh, it's the mistletoe arrows that one of the dwarf twins gives them. She's like, get those arrows out of here. So Baldur goes for a big old punch right into Atreus' chest, and it does no damage. And what happened with that, Josh?
It's because he was stabbed by a mistletoe.
Mm-hmm.
And not kissed by a mistletoe. Not kissed under it. He got stabbed by it. Because mistletoes can be deadly.
He is no longer invulnerable. And tell me about this sequence, Josh.
And Kratos messes him up. I want to drop the F-bomb there, but messes him up.
Yeah, this is an incredible sequence, because you got Baldur, who can now feel and is kind of going crazy with like the overwhelming senses, but he's still trying to kill you. And you've got Kratos and Atreus working together in like kind of unique quick time tag team sequences to stop him. But then you have Freya, who doesn't want her son to die, but also likes you enough that she doesn't want you to get hurt, trying to stop the whole fight. You freaking fight him across the sky, the ground, everything. Oh man, it is something. It's
something. Awesome, because it's great storytelling in an epic conclusion. And sometimes it's very hard for games to, you have such a great beginning, you have a great middle and conflict and whatnot, and then it just kind of fizzles out at the end, right? And we've seen it so many times in movies and TV shows, in video games and stuff like that. But building up to such an epic conclusion and it to continue to be as powerful and as meaningful as it actually was amazing.
But this fight builds up to this moment where Baldur is just kind of, he's sick of getting his ass kicked, and he's still sick of his mom, still resents her. So he turns around and he starts strangling Freya. And Freya is basically like, I'm not going to stop you. Like, I get it. You're pissed. And Kratos and Atreus are like, stop him. And she's like, no, don't hurt him and don't interfere. But Kratos is like, no, I cannot keep perpetuating cycles of violence and revenge. So he goes up and he snaps Baldur's neck. He just straight up, puts him down.
He Supermans him.
He Supermans him. And that is, we talk about how this game handles like really strong thematic ideas. It's like Kratos sees somebody about to kill a member of their own family, and he remembers his past when he was tricked by Ares into killing his first wife and child. And he's like, nah, I can't keep watching these cycles go over and over. So he stops Baldur. But how does Freya take it, Josh?
Oh, she doesn't like it. She's just very like, why? Why did you do that? Why did you ruin everything?
She's like, big thumbs down.
Yeah. Dislike that button.
And it's just so sad because like everything Freya did was for the good of her son, even if it was misguided. But in the end, it cost him his life. And again, we go back to all the parallels, Josh. Like, the choices that Kratos made on behalf of Atreus. And like, what was your take on just kind of the morals of the moment? Like, what did you think about everything that was happening here?
You understood it from everybody's perspective, and it's such a conflicting piece of storytelling right there too, right? Because like you understood why Boulder was doing what he was doing. You understood why Freya didn't want anyone to interfere and why she was fine with dying there. You understood why Kratos wanted to prevent that from happening. Like there's so many different layers, and it's such great storytelling that once it was over and done with, you're like, where do we go from now? Like, where do we go now?
Well, there's only one place left to go. Where does this mountain go, Josh?
Jordanheim.
Yes, it goes up to Jotunheim and
or Jotunheim.
Jotunheim.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jotunheim. Jotunheim. Jotunheim.
Bunch of Norse people like these filthy Americans who can't pronounce our stuff. But yes, the quest to Jotunheim is complete. You cross a bridge to the highest peak in the realm, which is this mountain. And when you get inside, you actually get a last kind of bit of information dump. You see a mural on the wall that seems to have prophesized the entire journey you went on.
Yeah.
And you come to realize that Faye, Kratos' wife, Atreus' mother, was from Jotunheim. She was a giantess. And we never see her in the game, so I just assumed she was probably tall, or maybe
but
she
not
was
really,
small
because you saw him carry her out and put her onto the thing. Like, she was a normal-sized person.
So maybe she was small by giant standards. Maybe. But that makes Atreus half god, half giant. And what do we learn about Atreus? There's part of the mural, and he has trouble understanding it.
Yeah, so there was like a mural or something like that about a child being born, and the child's name was Loki.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean?
I don't know.
It's so weird that, Loki in Norse mythology is, he can speak to snakes. He's the god of trickery. He uses a lot of like daggers and arrows and very simple tools at his disposal. And it's like, once that happens, you're like, oh my God, like you're piecing all of the things together and you're like, son of a bitch. Like, It was in front of us the whole time.
With this information known and the kind of mystery of like, what could this, lead to, they step out onto the peak, and together, they scatter Faye's ashes. And it's this beautiful culminating moment of, the two of them. They're not just father and son. They're borderline friends now. They have a respect and a love for each other that wasn't there at the start. And you watch the ashes fly over the landscape, and it's very beautiful. There's no kids waiting in line for the Tower of Terror getting, ashes in their face. Yep. And they start walking down the mountain. And this is what I thought was really cool. The credits of the game start rolling while you're strolling kind of down the mountain path with Atreus. You can still control, you can walk around in different directions and stuff, and they're just talking. And the credits are rolling, and it's like, this is the end of the story, but not the end of the game.
Right. There's so much more, collectible things inside the game as well, but there's a little bit of an Easter egg where you got to go back home.
Mm-hmm. So at the end of the journey, do you have to complete 100% complete the game to unlock this, or can you just go back after the story, Josh?
You can go right back after the story. Okay. First thing you got to do is you got to get into the battle bus, and you have to wait for it to kind of fly over the island, and then you drop out of it, and you're going to land probably around Tilted Towers.
Yes, God of War 12, Fortnite, yes.
Yes, because, Kratos is in Fortnite, and I don't know if that plays into the
God
story.
of War game. Yeah.
But
yes.
You make your way back to your house just to kind of relax and recuperate, and thunder comes, and with thunder brings lightning.
Ooh. And with thunder and lightning brings AC/DC.
It's true. That's true.
Yes.
Yeah.
But no, they walk outside, and there's a man who we only see kind of in silhouette, and he reaches for a hammer, and then it cuts to black. And the last little bit we get is like Kratos and Atreus, they wake up in the house, and Atreus is like, I had this crazy dream, and it was winter, and this dude with a hammer came to our house, and he was going to attack us. And Kratos is like, well, that was just a dream.
And he looks at the camera and winks.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
No, he doesn't do that.
It freeze frames, and it's like executive producer Corey Barlog. Yeah. But overall, story-wise, Josh, what were you impressed by? What didn't you like, if at all? Tell me.
I love the whole thing. The only problem that I ran into, and it's just a minor thing, like I said, was just how confusing the names of all the places were. And I'm like, well, I have to go and do this one thing. Or I remember seeing this one particular Odin Raven, and I'm like, well, was it in Valheim? Was it in Helheim? Was it in Miflheim? You know what I mean? Like, what? Like, I got very confused with that. There were some great pieces with the story, some minor stuff with the story too. Boat rides with Mimir, amazing, great.
Always telling stories.
Yeah,
Yep.
I like, and like just how creative it was like, oh, when you docked, he's like, well, I'll just pick it up when we get back in, and it's like, okay, and you get out, and then you hop back in. So as I was saying, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh my god, like that's insane. And, you know, coming from the same year that Spider-Man came out, where I was impressed when you were swinging through the city and how fast you were going and running, Spider-Man's voice was like he was like out of breath or running and stuff like that. Or if he's just being casual, he was just talking like normal. I'm like, God, that's just a great little minor detail that makes this world so much more immersive.
Yeah, gameplay performances and the way they can be incorporated in games have evolved to a really impressive point, especially with those examples you cited. Really, really good stuff. Yeah, I thought this overall just hit every thematic point it wanted to tell about parents and children and how complicated that relationship is. It's also a big, fun, epic adventure, you know, where you fight huge bosses, you discover grand, unique things, and it's just like, yeah, it's just good. It is really, really good. And I think the only way we can really do this any more justice is we got to talk about its legacy, Josh.
Oh my God. And with the legacy, we're going to send it on to the future.
Or the past, actually, from this point of the episode.
Take it away, past Josh and Thom. Ladies and gentlemen, today's guest is a man who chose the Ouya over the PlayStation Vita. A man who hates chicken wings so much he goes to Buffalo Wild Wings, orders chicken wings, and only eats the celery. Xbox's biggest fanboy, ladies and gentlemen, Greg Miller.
I can end this stream, you know. There's no Kevin to go through. I can turn it off, Josh. I can end this right now. How dare you, sir? The Ouya?
You are anti-hosting. This is
what is this opposite day garbage? How are you guys?
Good.
We're good.
Man.
Thank you again for being here with us. We're very excited to talk to you.
Oh man, thanks for making the time to hang out with me.
Yeah, because today's game, as I understand it from Josh, has a very special place in your heart. Josh, what are we covering today?
Today, we are going to be talking about the legacy of God of War 2018.
Ooh, excellent. Yes. Fantastic. I noticed that today. Yeah, I booked you guys on this podcast-a-thon a while back. And I was reading through. I'm like, what am I talking on this? And I got to you guys and you're like, Greg's going to choose a game. I'm like, oh, damn, did we ever choose a game? Did we ever talk? I'm like, they know me. They'll pick something I'm all about. I'm not worried about it.
I gotcha.
Josh just got it. He got it. But yes, for listeners of our show, you know the rules. But if you don't, we like to wait until a game is at least 3 years old to cover on the show, because then enough of the discourse is settled and enough of its reputation is probably established. And God of War 2018, luckily enough, it's right there. It's right in that sweet spot. So we want to talk about the
legacy. It's still kind of relevant with coming out on PC recently.
Absolutely.
And Ragnarok coming this year. Come on now.
Yeah. Well,
Perfect.
Is it?
I hope. Yeah. Don't jinx it.
I believe more and more for some reason. You know what I mean? I'm getting closer and closer to being like, yes, it's for sure. I believe it's Hannah. It's a game you could believe would come this year, but you also could believe could be delayed.
Well, if it gets delayed, you can now officially blame Josh for jinxing it right here.
Great. Perfect.
So there we go.
Gotcha. I got you guys.
So, as we mentioned, this game comes out in 2018, blows up the world of PlayStation fandom, all that.
For sure.
Stone Cold instant classic. Not trying to give too much of the opinion away of this, but let's go round table, starting with our special guest, Greg. What were your kind of personal takeaways when you played God of War for the first time?
I couldn't believe what I was playing. It's one of the few, honestly the only time where I had taken my PlayStation 4 with me, because we got God of War and then it was PAX, and I want to say it was PAX East, right? It was in the spring, right? And it went out there and I brought it. No, it was PAX West maybe. Hold on, God of War. What was the actual release date on God of War? April. Yeah, April. Okay, so yeah, that would have been
Yeah.
PAX East. So I brought the PlayStation 4 and the review copy of God of War over to Boston, and it was one of those things I knew I'd have to work on. I knew I'd have to not be around PAX as much, but I didn't miss PAX, if that makes sense. Like, I went all the way to Boston, and I was living this dream of playing this game that only got better the more I played it, while also drinking really expensive room service coffee and like sandwiches here and there. And I remember I would only leave the hotel room to go do the panels I was going to be hosting or going to be on or whatever. And it was just such an incredible experience of being like, I can't get enough of this. I can't believe what I'm playing. I can't believe they made me, somebody who did not like Kratos at all, care so much about Kratos, care so much about this game. Like, God of War, I previewed it where got to go downtown. We got to go to LA. I previewed up until you, Freya, and Atreus have the boar, and they made us stop there right as we were about to get to Freya's house. And so I remember coming off that, like, that was awesome, that was great. And then to play it and see it expand and see how, upgrading your armor worked, how it worked to go between the different worlds, the way the story evolved in general, the way the boss fights. I to this day still marvel at God of War. And as someone who doesn't replay games, like, usually I get pretty bored, I'm so stoked this year for that first. Once we're 100% sure it's coming this year, I want to play it like with a month or two before God of War Ragnarok drops to be right back into it. But my interpretation of putting it down was, I think this is my favorite game of all time. And 3 years later now, like you said, or 4 years later now, like you said, right? It is my favorite game right now. It's at the top of my list, which is something I never would have thought I would say about a God of War game.
Excellent. Josh, how about you?
So when it got announced at it wasn't E3, was it?
PSX,
It was,
I think, right? Wasn't it?
Yeah. It was at one of the PlayStation conference. I remember they had the orchestra there, and that was the big thing.
So wait, maybe that was E3 then. They all run together. They all run together.
It was E3 because in the documentary they show that moment and Corey kind of like sitting and watching the event play out. It was very big, very big.
And I remember watching that conference and like, what is this? What is this? And then when it showed Kratos, like, I like marked out for a moment. I was like, sure. What? And then I was like, wait, why am I getting really excited about God of War? I didn't care about God of War since God of War 2. And that was like kind of meh. Like, it looked great on the PlayStation 2, but that was it. And I was like, man, like, I'm really excited for this. Like, and I got so like pumped and so jacked up over it. And then like all the stuff was coming out over it. And then I think there was a Game Informer article about it as well, or one of the magazines picked it up, and I was like, man, like, that was the first time I picked up a gaming magazine in a long time too.
Oh, come on, but with your GameStop card, your GameStop privileges or whatever, you were getting Game Informer shipped off to your house. Don't worry about it.
But no, I mean, it was one of those things, like, it was something that I was anticipating and I was actually looking forward to, because like nowadays, like, we get games and we hear about games, but do they ever live up to the hype that we expect from them? And that's something very, very rarely happens. Thank you, Elden Ring. But
I honestly think Elden Ring exceeded the hype, which is outrageous.
Oh my god, yeah. But no, it's one of those things though. Like, when it came out, I was like, I bought it day one, which something I very rarely do. And I sat down and I just played it nonstop.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest part, like, that clicked to me that this was something different, it was like, I was like 3 hours into the game and I was like, wait, the camera didn't change. The camera didn't change at all. Like, I realized that the whole thing was a one take, with some loading screens hidden in there.
Yeah, they do some fancy little magic here and there. But yeah.
But no, it was one of those, like, that blew my mind, and it like made me love it even more. And then as the story started to progress even more, I loved the characters. I loved the world. I got a little confused sometimes with the naming of the places, but it's okay. It's, what are you gonna do? But no, overall, it was one of those things that lived up to the expectation.
Very cool. Very cool.
What about you, Tom? Because you just recently played it for the first time.
Yes. So for me, I played God of War 1 way back in high school, and then I missed the rest of the franchise, not out of any malice, just out of like, life was happening. And then I followed the hype train around this, and I thought it always looked really compelling. And the thing that kind of drew me to this, honestly, is the fact that I'm a filmmaker, and I heard this whole game, it's a giant, like, seamless one-take event, and I'm like, how? So when I finally got my hands on a PS5, this is the first game I threw into it. I was like, all right, let's do this. And I was floored by everything else on top of that. But I just want to start with, the the kind of magic cuts that they use, whether it's when you're going into the world serpent's mouth and it closes and it's like, oh, that's a load screen, even though we just have the audio of like, oh, it's dark, oh, and boy, you know, or the little shove yourself through the crevices.
Of
and
course.
it's like, you know,
Classics.
but it's seamless, so seamless. And it's not just that it's one take, it's that everything within these takes, it focuses on really good character blocking and shot composition.
100%.
I did a video on this of how they managed to keep everything in focus at every pivotal moment and emphasize, you know, the character drama without the use of cuts. It's truly breathtaking. But beyond all that, it's held up by the fantastic performances and the super engaging and fun combat. Like, I had a blast, you know, mastering the Leviathan axe and just learning how to plow through enemies more and more efficiently. And when I was
dude,
done,
the first time you throw the Leviathan axe and call it back, you know what I mean? I remember that at the preview where you used it and then just the boom, and it was like, whoa! Like, I remember that was the one where we all left after playing that, and it was like that set the stage for that. I remember, you know, when Avengers got announced, and it was always like, all right, Mjolnir has to feel like that, and Mjolnir did not feel like that, and that's why one of those reasons Avengers is Avengers and God of War is God of War.
When you're the OG boomerang projectile and you can't work as well as the Leviathan hammer, you've messed up.
Yeah.
So, yeah, left a big impression on me. And I also thought it did a good job of this new trend of like reboot quills or soft reboots, what have you, of you can come in with my lack of experience with the franchise beyond a quick like read up and jump right in. And like nothing felt alien. The big moments hit, like the references to Kratos' past. It's like, I understand all of the dramatic weight of this without having been in on it. And then I can only imagine for longtime fans, it had to like hit that sweet spot too.
Well, what I found so incredible was it, like, you know, for me, the God of War story was that, yeah, like I started at IGN 15 years ago in end of February, beginning of March. And then right after that was the release of God of War 2 on PlayStation 2. And it was like the swan song for the PS2. PS3 was already out, but, you know, this had dropped. And I played a little bit of it, and I found it just like God of War 1, where this dude's just screaming and having sex with girls on beds and then, you know, smashing a pot and throwing it on. I'm like, I get the combat's cool. It's just not my scene. I'm not really into it. And so when God of War 3 rolled around, you know, PlayStation 3 game, I was further up on the PlayStation team. You know, I might have been running it at that point. Probably was. And, you know, played through that the whole way through. And it was still the thing of like, all right, like, you know, I'm doing it, and then you get to this ending where he gets stabbed and it looks like he's dead, but he's not dead. It's like, all right, like, you know what I mean? I remember Ascension, like God of War only ever spoke to me on the PSP for Chains of Olympus and Ghost of Sparta. And I thought it was because those stories actually tried to flesh out Kratos a bit more, dealing with his brother or something to that effect. And they were fun to have on the go. And, you know, I don't think there was as much weight behind them. They were, you know, it was Ready at Dawn. They were ready to have just a game that was fun to go through and tear some stuff up and whatever. And I think that worked as a portable thing for me. But I had no attachment to Kratos, to God of War, to the Blades of Chaos, you name it. And so to be playing 2018, to be loving it, to be falling in love with all the stuff you're talking about, right? Even in, you know, that debut trailer we're talking about, right? Like the blocking of it, of when Atreus doesn't kill the animal, right? And then Kratos, you know, goes to comfort him, but he pulls back. Just that scene, that little bit in the trailer, you were like, oh my God, like that's saying something without saying something. Like they're doing something here that we don't usually get out of it. And so then to be playing that game and get hours in, and I mean, I will never forget, like, you know, everybody has their this gave me chills moment, or like, oh my God, I can't believe when you mark out for something. And for me, not a God of War fan, like I understand it, but not appreciative. It didn't mean anything to me, the history before it. To get to where, you know, Atreus is wounded and they're like, you know, oh, you need a weapon that no such weapon exists or whatever. And Kratos goes, I know of one weapon. And I went, oh, I just got chills saying it, right? I was like, oh my fucking God. And he gets in the boat and goes, and Athena pops up and talks to you the whole way. And you get there and you tear apart the house, and I was like, I flipped out. And it's not like I loved the Blades of Chaos. It's not like I was the biggest God of War fan or something. Like the game at that point had made me care so much about Kratos and how they framed his past, where I always thought he was a shitty character. Calliope, Zeus, your son has returned. It's like, dude, do you have another range? Like, you're always up here. Like, give me something, man. The fact that this game gave context to all that, showed this growth of Kratos, showed him trying to be something different, and then brought it back, and then made me care about those games. I was like, oh my, like, what a master stroke. And then how much fun it was to use those. And it was also just like, I'm sure I'm a moron and everybody else totally was like, oh, I'm going to get Blades of Chaos at some point. I never thought we were. I very much had bought it hook, line, and sinker. I'm like, oh, it's just going to be the Leviathan Axe. Shout out to PlayStation for not ruining that in pre-marketing materials beforehand or anything like that. Like, that is like such the perfect moment for me of like, wow, this game is so special.
And beyond that, just as a note, when I managed to go my whole like time before playing it without getting the Blades part spoiled, and with the way that the combat system had been completely redesigned, at first I was like, how are these gonna work? I've been using this axe, and it seemed like the camera was like perfect for that the whole game. I'm like, is this gonna? And then, it completely worked.
That boat ride though, like it was one of those things that, like, yeah, you came from Kratos' past, but just riding on that boat and just feeling the music that came with it, just his conversation that he was having on the boat, like you knew he was going to do whatever he needed to do to save his son, like at that time. And it was just one of those things, like it was, oh, thank you for that.
Absolutely.
2018 was a huge year though.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yes. So this game hit critical acclaim, but what didn't get critical acclaim in 2018? Possibly one of the best years for gaming. I wanted to talk about the Game Awards next to kind of just summarize what a year we had. Let me see how much we get. Well, we got your God of War. We've got a little game called Celeste, top of Josh's head right there. We've got a big old blockbuster called Red Dead Redemption 2. We've got a superhero game that I think Greg might have heard of. It's called Marvel Spider-Man.
I remember that.
We've got a game in where you hunt monsters. It's called Monster Hunter World.
Madden came out that year too.
Oh, of course. Oh,
the definitive Madden. Many thought. Yeah.
I was there in line. But Game Awards, for me, I remember the big narrative of that was it was Red Dead versus God of War.
Yeah.
And at the time, I had only played Red Dead, and I love that game as much as I love God of War in terms of what it's doing for storytelling and gaming and the scope of each game. Did Josh, I presume, knowing what I know about your opinion of Red Dead, you went into that Game Awards on the God of War train exclusively, right?
No, I went on in Celeste, man. Come on. I went in full guns blazing. I thought it was going to be the year that an indie game was going to outshine everything. Celeste came in with perfect 10 out of 10s, 100% everywhere. And I was like, if an indie game is going to rival these juggernauts in the gaming industry, like it has to mean something. It has to mean something. And then God of War 1, and I was like, okay, I'm still not upset. It's a great game. I understand why. Like, dude, I'm not gonna.
That was the thing about every award show that year, whether you're talking about Game Awards, DICE, whether you're talking about just IGN or GameSpot's Game of the Year. It was one of those where it was always a toss-up, and you could see any of them winning, and you wouldn't be mad about any of them. Like, I think you named all those games right there, and each and every one of those, I could sit here and make a case for why that was Game of the Year, and then why, if that won, it was cool that it won, and it wasn't a big deal. But in fact, it was Red Dead or God of War, and then never Spider-Man. Poor Insomniac.
Unfortunately for Yuri, yes, and the rest of the Insomniac team. Yeah,
I'll never forget it.
Always the bridesmaid, never the bride.
I hosted DICE Awards that year, and like they won for like, I don't even know, sound or technical. Not like, a game of the year, action platformer or action adventure of the year or anything like that. And like they won, and they uproarious from the Insomniac table. They all came to stage because they were like, "This is our shot." Like, we have been sitting in the wings for every awards show. We're coming up for this, all of us, to celebrate this.
Get your speeches. Fantastic. Yeah, I for me the highlight of the show, I still remember that to this year, was when you had Sonny Suljic and Christopher Judge go up on stage together, and he gave him the Kratos boy, like, read the nominees, boy. That was like the whole crowd went nuts for that. In like my friend's house, we were like, yeah, woo,
And that's one of those things again where it's like, that moment's so great because, again, those performances were so great and so standout. And I think, you bring up Yuri from Spider-Man. You can bring up a number of different people. I always, when I think of like voice actors breaking the mold and getting that kind of recognition, I think of Dave Fennoy, Melissa Hutchinson from Walking Dead season 1. But of course, Nolan, Emily from Uncharted, Troy and Ashley from Last of Us. When you see people break out that way in their first one, where they really get out, because Christopher Judge, obviously well known in the geek space, you know what I mean, for Stargate and a bunch of other stuff. And so like when that happened and gaming kind of like accepted him and embraced him that way, and I had to have Sonny there and have them have that relationship and have all the behind the scenes footage and stuff, like that's so special when voice actors are and actors are celebrities that way to us, that you are like, oh man, I just want to see them interplay that way together.
So like we're 4 years out of it, right? The games have come and gone since then. What has God of War influenced, do you think, over the past 4 years?
Man, I think it's that, well, multiple things, but what I would say is what you kind of touched on earlier, right? Of like the requel, the reboot, whatever you want to call it, the soft reboot, however you want to put it in there. It is breathing new life into an older character. And I think we saw a lot of that last year in the build up to Halo Infinite, where it was this conversation of like, cool, like, I mean, even maybe before they even announced it, is this going to be like a God of War Halo game where it's going to redefine what we think of Master Chief, introduce him to a new crowd, make him cool to an audience that hasn't cared about Master Chief before? And I'm speaking a bit out of turn as someone who never cared about Master Chief, but also didn't connect with the latest Halo. Like, no, it didn't. And that's good. That's fine. Don't get me wrong. Like, totally fine to be like, we're sticking to, 343 wanted to make a Halo game that harkened back to Halos before it, but also opened up the world and stuff like that. And that's good and that's fine, but I do think that puts a limiter on what happens then, right? Like, Halo came and went, and there's been a whole bunch of different conversations and podcasts, and the XCast, even from Kind of Funny last week or the week before, talking about like, man, maybe this was a miss that Halo didn't have Forge mode and didn't have co-op multiplayer and didn't have all this, or co-op campaign when it launched, because it's kind of just come and gone and it hasn't redefined. And I think the fact that we're sitting here talking about God of War this way, and that people still compare games that are coming out, where they're talking about performances, cinematography, the one-shot stuff, the rebooting of a character, or whatever you want to call what they've done to Kratos here, like taking something that is it. You look at something like Ratchet, and you look at Ratchet and Clank, right? And of course, Ratchet and Clank won a bunch of game of the year awards, including Kind of Funnies last year, and that's all well and good. But Ratchet and Clank is very much a modern Ratchet and Clank, and that's awesome and that's good, and there's an audience for it, and I'm not saying it shouldn't exist, but again, it won Kind of Funny's game of the year because we all had things we really cared about, but they were all different things, but we all respected and liked Ratchet enough to put it high enough on our list that it was the only game that was on everybody's list, and so it got enough votes to get the game of the year the way we do it. And I think a few different times that's happened at award shows where votes get split between some real competitors, but then Ratchet is such a solid game that people come out. Is Ratchet going to be talked about in 4 years the way we're talking about God of War? I doubt it. And that's, again, not a knock against Ratchet. It's a great game. I loved it. I had a great time with it, but I put it down and I didn't really think about it again. Whereas God of War has been that conversation of performances, story, what is going to happen, even before we knew Ragnarok, let alone the fact that like the Easter egg of going home to sleep after you beat the game. Because that was the other thing. I beat the game and I put it down and I was all set for my review, and I forget who I was talking to, like, no, dude, go to your house. Go to your house right now. Stop what you're doing. Go to your house and do this thing. I was like, okay, cool. And like, God of War is something special, and I think you can compare a million different aspects of different games to it. But I would say, yeah, the top of it is right now that how do you breathe new life into something and make it more than what it was before?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
What about you, Thom?
So for me, hearing what everything Greg just said, I really do agree, because my examples were a little bit more, micro than macro. But, when I think of games that came after God of War and influences I see, they're smaller, but I still think they're important. Ghost of Tsushima's upgrade system and the way that its skill trees evolved. As I was pouring through those menus, I was like, oh, I'm playing God of War again. I would not be surprised if, being within the PlayStation family, they were just sticking to that. An interesting similarity I saw was within last year's Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, in that basically the whole Guardians team is like, Star-Lord is Kratos and you're playing with 4 Atreises.
That's a good point.
The way you got to manage them and direct them around the battlefield, that was an instant jump out to me. And, its focus on going the extra mile with cinematography and everything in its cutscenes. They really wanted to bring not just the visual elements of the Marvel films, but just clearly a higher standard to it. And I would like to think that maybe God of War helps set that standard. Josh, what about you? What do you think?
The only big one that comes to mind for me was Jedi Fallen Order. I thought that those two games very similar to each other. The way that it's not all one take and whatnot, but like going to the different planets, very similar to going to the different realms, very similar to, you still have the walking through cracks in the wall as you're hitting loading screens. You had the little droid being as your Atreus pretty much at certain times, being able to help repair stuff or go through and run through the menus in there as well. Like, that's the closest comparison even to the combat in that game too. Like, throwing the lightsaber, pulling it back to you. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of similarities there that I think that's the closest of anything that I've played recently that resembles anything like God of War 18.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to talk about throwing and pulling. Obviously, those have been mechanics in Jedi games and, for a long, long time. I think, if anything, it's the fact that now, if you are going to have a throw and call back, or, a throw and call response gameplay mechanic, it's going to be compared to the Leviathan Axe. Like, I think that, that's the whole thing. I jokingly mentioned Avengers, but it's true. And it is true for Fallen Order. It is true for anything you play that does that. It's always going to be compared. Does it feel that good? Because that's what God of War did, right? God of War felt great. And I think... that's why it's a masterpiece. That's why we talk about it today, is that every part of God of War, I think, is a 10 out of 10. Like, I think the performances, the visuals, the level design we haven't talked about, but it is that thing of, like, anytime you could go on the branching path into a dead end, there'd be something you'd want in that dead end. Like, I never felt like I was wasting my time. Everything felt very specifically placed for a reason. And then, the gameplay the Leviathan Axe feels good, but it just felt good to play in general. It felt good to order Atreus around. It felt good to explore. It felt good to have the heft of Kratos. The way Kratos looks is the way he feels when you play that game. And I hate playing games where you're like, okay, cool, I'm just, if it's first person, I'm just a camera on a stick moving around, or I'm playing this thing and it just isn't lining up, or it doesn't have weight to it. Everything in that game has weight.
Absolutely. I hate doing puzzles in third person games like that, and it made me enjoy them, where it's like, hey, there's a certain thing over there, well, I'm gonna throw my axe over there and grab it, but I have to pull it back in a certain amount of time, so this door, like, I have to be in a certain area to it. Like, it made me think outside the box in a combat style for non-combat related things. And the last time I remember something along those lines was when I was playing Portal.
Something I wanted to ask, what do we think about the recent history of partner characters within video games? Now, obviously, God of War didn't create the concept of a partner character. When Josh and I were talking, we thought back to Elizabeth in BioShock Infinite, and then obviously The Last of Us, probably the earliest big standard. But I think Atreus became, for me anyway, just kind of the new standard of, like, a partner character that's not just important in the narrative, but honestly useful in the mechanics of the game. And I wanted to get both of your takes on if you can think of any examples before, or if you think, more recent games are gonna start being smarter with how they have you interact with other, important characters within the game.
I mean, I think it's so easy to screw that up, right? How before this, and I think even for Last of Us and whatever, how hard is it to hear you're going to have an AI companion and not roll your eyes so far back into your head thinking of escort missions, to not think of Leon and Ashley from Resident Evil 4, right? To not just hide in this garbage can. Let me go do the god. You just stay in the garbage can, don't get killed, and let me do this. Like, it had been so long that you had completely useless companions. And there's varying levels of degrees of how that works and doesn't work. Even Last of Us, where Ellie, of course, is great. How many times do you see Ellie, bump into the thing? But since only Joel triggers it, you see Ellie breaking. It's like, all right, what I mean? Like, that's whatever. Like, to have Atreus there and do that, I think, is another reason where it was, okay, cool. Like, this is the ascension, no pun intended, of what you can do with these characters, what you can do with a side helpful character that doesn't have to be somebody that, because it was just, you look at like a Joel and Ellie and it's like, cool, it's literally an escort mission, but I don't have to protect her. I don't have to worry about her. That's all I care about, and that's fine, because then I get focused on the gameplay. And so, to give Atreus the ability to help you out and do stuff, it does harken back to like what you're talking about, the way Guardians of the Galaxy moving forward then, took that and weaponized it and basically made the Guardians Star-Lord's special abilities.
And it was super stressful whenever any of them went down, because you got 4 Atreuses, like I said, to run across the map and try to heal. But Josh, what do you think?
No, I mean, earlier than that, I would say, I'm trying to think like co-op related games like Gears of War. Like when you had like your teammates go down or you went down, they had to come over and pick you up or something like that. Like they were helping you out in the world, but it wasn't like necessary sometimes the story-based ones like with Thom and whatnot, you had to keep them alive. But you had Gears of War, you had BioShock Infinite, like we talked about, and then Last of Us are the ones that I think did it right. Greg talks about one of my least favorite video games of all time, Resident Evil 4. We all know it's a
Look
piece
at
of garbage.
you come for the jugular on this game. Oh my god, you want to piss off the chat. I love
it. He
it.
was so quiet during Greg's spiel, and then he did it. He's like, "Oh, God."
Listen.
Hey, I think
If
Resident Evil
anybody
4
knows
is
anything about-
overrated as hell. Don't worry about it.
Thank you. It is. Oh my god. Resident Evil 4, Super Mario 64, two shitty games.
God.
Thank you. That's all I'm
Whoa,
gonna say.
okay. You're taking it a bit further than I was ready to commit to,
listen,
but I
I will-
appreciate it.
You give him one
there's
hot
a
take,
line-
and then he's like, "Every influential 3D game is trash." It's like, no.
I hate Frogger.
There's always a line, and I like to look over that line just to see. No,
Greg, I really didn't appreciate that hate on NBC's hit game show Frogger. I really didn't appreciate it. America's National Treasure. Come on.
No, I mean, it is one of those things that, like, when it came to those side characters, like Greg said, though, in Resident Evil 4, how many times, Tom, when I was playing Resident Evil 4 in stream, did I shoot Ashley in the head? And it was by accident, but she was always in my way.
Sure it was. Man who hates Resident Evil 4. I'm sure you shot the president's daughter in the head by accident. Let him go, everybody. Let him go, boys.
Our work here is done. Our work here is done.
But that
She
was
was
always
dead
the
when I
thing
got
is,
there.
You know, like even in Metal Gear Solid 2, like, you know, taking Emma's hand and walking her around. It's like, this sucks. Like, this is just like slowing it down and making you not feel like we've made you powerful. So now to make you less powerful, we'll give you somebody who's, you know, a glass cannon or whatever that's going to get destroyed.
Sure. But to that end, I think that's the kind of appropriate description of why we like it when it's Atreus, because his quote unquote weakness doesn't ever feel like a problem, because we get the scope of the game, we get the father-son dynamic in that story, and Atreus is useful enough that when he is weak, it's
enough.
not. That's what Kratos would say. You're useful enough.
Useful enough.
But yeah.
I'm starting my space heater. I'm not running away.
Oh,
I still
look
hear
at
you.
him.
Keep going. It's fine.
it's a cold Greg.
I got a
Anyways.
space heater.
But no, I think it's an absolute good. I'm really interested to see how they're going to evolve it within Ragnarok.
Oh yeah.
And I really just want to see more games where if we're gonna do duos or partners, they got to be done smarter and more efficiently, and ways that it's not going to interfere with your gameplay experience. So.
And it's always going to be fascinating of what is the next evolution of that. Because it is a fine line to walk. Like, I get it of, cool, you are Kratos in this example. You're the god of war. You're this all-powerful thing. How do we give you a companion that isn't annoying and gets in your way, isn't useless and doesn't do anything, doesn't do too much, doesn't get into, give the killing blows before you can? There's a lot to juggle in there, and it's why most games don't do it. But then when you do, how do you figure it out?
Absolutely. So Josh, something was announced recently, obviously during the span of waiting to record this. Do you wanna tell it to everybody what got announced?
Yeah, the Ninja Turtles collection that Konami released, right? Is that what we were talking about, Tom? No,
of course. Yeah, perfect segue. No.
The God of War TV series, the TV adaptation.
That is allegedly going to be produced by Amazon, from what I believe. Please feel free to yell at me in the comments if I'm wrong.
No, that's correct.
Okay, cool. But I thought this was really interesting because I know that they have been trying to make a God of War movie of some sort for a long time. And the last confirmed thing that I knew was happening is that it was going to be a live action film, and that Gerard Butler was apparently the front runner for Kratos. And I was like, in 2019? I'm not trying to hate on Gerard, but all right, that's a choice. But now we're sitting here, TV adaptation, and Amazon clearly, they're if you can just see through the Lord of the Rings series, they want to be a prestige streaming service,
sure.
And maybe this can be their key to it. So what are our feelings on this, on God of War going to TV? Greg, how do you feel about this getting a series?
I've been surprised on all the kind of funny stuff. Like, I've been way more positive than most, and I understand there's definitely wait and see who's doing it, who's in it, there's a million questions like that. But this gets me infinitely more excited than a God of War movie. Like, I think the idea of the way I've wrapped my head around it is, I think it'll be the 2018 story, and I think it'll be that you are introducing it in a way that you could come in this and not know anything about it, which would be super fascinating to see those flashbacks, to see Kratos wrestle with the flashes of images of what he's done, and then inevitably, if it's 8 episodes, episode 6, right, we start off in ancient Greece, and we see, Kratos kill his family, and we see the, Blades of Chaos get welded to his arms, and the ashes of like I think you see all that and you get suddenly have that like moment for a new viewer of like, oh my god, like this guy's been through so much. No wonder he's been so mean to Atreus. No wonder he's so cold. Like I want to see that story breathe. I want that story to be 8-10 hours. I don't want it to be 2 hours, everything shoved in there. You know, I don't know if you guys saw Uncharted, right? Like leaving Uncharted, like I thought it was a fun popcorn movie. I had a lot of fun with it, but it is like, you know, Nate and Sully's relationship moves really quickly. All these different things, this happens, that happens. You just accept all these things that are going on. And for a story that I think is as complicated as God of War, in a good way, I want to see that go. I want to see that breathe. I want backstories on the characters we get introduced. I always mispronounce his name, right? But Mimir, right? Like, let's have an episode about him before he's just ahead. Like, let's go through and have some fun with that. And like, I could see that going. I could see that living. I could see that being a visually stunning show. I think the fact that, you know, it is set in the woods, you know, on this giant hike, basically, up to the top of the mountain, makes for some really cool set pieces that can be, you know, the mixture of giant redwoods in nature mixed with the mythical and having the giant creature and troll come out that you have to fight and slay with your axe or whatever.
Do you think it would cross too close to the Witcher show?
No, I don't. I think that I love The Witcher show, for full disclosure. Season 1 and 2, we just adored here. Not to mention Henry Cavill's great. I think you get away from it because I do think the fact that you start, and this is somewhat spoilers, I guess, for Witcher, but you start with him and Atreus there. Like, what I love about the God of War 2018 video game story is that it's so easy to wrap your head around, right? They've lost their mom. He's a standoffish father. Now they just got to get her ashes to the top of the thing, right? Let's go from there. And Witcher was a lot more to wrestle with, right? In terms of, okay, cool. What's Triss doing? How does this work? Yennefer, but then here's a whole giant flashback. Then the reveal that the timeline's different. And then finally, right, you get Ciri and Geralt together at the very end, and that kind of season 2 of them then. I think starting with Atreus and Kratos together and going and having that Baldur fight and go from there, I think you get to slowly drip feed into the crazy stuff, the giant monsters, the different, you know, draggers or whatever they're fighting as they go along their way. Whereas, you know, Witcher is more like there's a different monster every week and it's kind of a big deal. Whereas I think this is going to be a more like, you know, the way Atreus reacts in the game to seeing these things so close to home now. And then the reveal of what the handprints and the, you know, the barrier spells and all that jazz.
I like that. I like that a lot because something I didn't even consider is, yeah, that makes Atreus a good point of view character for the audience. Everything can be explained to him, and then we, the audience, get it. Like, in terms of, like, the technical high fantasy stuff or anything like that, it's like, oh, boy, you don't know. And then, boom, the audience has that in point. When Josh and I were, you know, talking about this for today, we were like, so where's the show start? Because we're going to play a little game real quick. We're going to play Who Should They Cast as Kratos? And my choices, I kind of split it because I was just like, well, what era is this show going to start in? So Josh, I'm really interested to hear, who are your choices if they cast Kratos? And if they're like timeline specific to the show, tell us why.
Okay, so timeline specific, I would say Tom Hardy for Kratos.
Mm-hmm.
I would say Batista for Kratos. If they did it back with the original trilogy, I would say Vin Diesel as Kratos. Because just listen, just constantly just screaming and yelling and being over the top. That's what Vin Diesel wants to do.
The family Zeus.
But I can't remember his name, but he played the wizard in Shazam.
Jaimin Hansu.
Yes, I would pick him as well for Kratos.
Yeah, I can't confirm at all if this was like officially rumors or just fan casting, but I remember Jaimin being thrown around a lot for Kratos back when, you know, the kind of initial games came out, because he had that big role in Blood Diamond in 2006, and that was between the first 2 games, and a lot of people were like, well, he's got the voice for it, he's a muscular guy, he could probably pull off playing Kratos. So yeah, that would be pretty interesting. I would, my 3, maybe the first one may be controversial because I know how Josh felt about this movie. But so my logic is, if you're going to do the show in the whole scope of Kratos' life, so you got to start young and have somebody who can age up, I think I would like to see a young up-and-comer like Robbie Amell from Welcome to Raccoon City, because I think he's got good action chops and he can grow into it. You know what I mean? Like, just get buff enough until you're at the huge dad bod Kratos. If we're talking about actors who maybe have the potential now, I would come to mind also just in terms of pulling off voice, because the voice is like obviously iconic and appointment. Winston Duke from Black Panther and Us would be a kind of a left field choice, but I think he's got the potential to pull it off. And then a super kind of jokey Winston Duke.
Yeah.
Throwing that axe around and everything,
Damn, he actually, wow, that's a perfect choice. I'm looking at him right now. Boy, I can see that.
And then finally, a complete joke choice, but NXT era Triple H man with the huge beard and the bald head. He already uses a sledgehammer. I mean, I haven't seen him in Blade Trinity, so I don't actually know any of his acting chops, but he's got the look down.
You got the chaperone to go off of.
Oh, that's right. Oh,
I'm always so bad at this in terms of picking who it would be, and it's such a different. I feel like this is gonna be somebody we don't expect. Like I saw Batista go around a lot, and it's like I love Batista. I would love to see Batista's interpretation, but you know how this stuff goes, right? Yeah, they're gonna do a season of it, but yeah, they're also hoping for a season 2 and a 3, and like they're not gonna do one and done. And I know Batista already said about the next Guardians being his last Guardians, and he was like, pretty soon my boobs are gonna start sagging, kind of thing. And so that's where it gets into an interesting thing of like that. And so it's like I've seen Jason Momoa go around a lot, and I love Jason Momoa as well. I think he's fun. I think he could have fun with the role and be serious. Obviously, he was great in Game of Thrones before we knew he was just a huge goofball. I think depending on his Aquaman, it can be fun, is fun. I liked Aquaman, the movie, right? Like it was a fun, stupid popcorn.
Very fun. Very fun, yeah.
And so like that would be that. But I just feel like they're going to go... I think they'll do somebody not unknown, but not on that level. I think we keep looking at like movie star kind of thing, right? Where it's like, who would you put in there and where would you go for it? And I'm not saying like these people, are better than Amazon TV, and obviously Amazon's got the money. I just think it's going to be somebody more like a Robbie Amell. Robbie Amell's a really interesting choice. I don't think it would be him, but like that level where it's like somebody who is like, who needs to be catapulted to that next stratosphere? You know what I mean? And Robbie Amell is somebody who's a friend of the shows or whatever. I think during the Duff we started following each other, and we talk once in a while. He's great.
Okay.
And so like I'd love to see him do that role, but I wonder who it would be that you put in there and do it.
Now, I don't know. I don't want to overstep boundaries when it comes to this, but like, let's say Robbie Amell would get it. Do you think there would be any backlash for whitewashing that character?
I do. That's why I don't think it'll be him.
Right.
I do think that would be, and I think it is also, I think it'd be really important and cool to do that, because I do think a lot of people miss the fact that Kratos is a person of color. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like they're just like so hung up thinking like whatever, and like he's got white skin. Well, actually they're ashes, and it's not. He's not really from there. Like I think that'd be cool, and that's why like honestly the I've already forgotten Winston Duke.
Yeah.
Like just Googling. I mean, first off, we all saw Black Panther, right? But like the Google image searches of him just at the top of the thing is like awesome. But it'd be interesting to do that. And then, yeah, like, in the chat right now, wait, I went away. No, Slip Crit says an unknown Greek actor would be cool. I mean, even a known Greek actor, right? Like, I don't even know. I don't even have a bench of Greek actors I can name off the top of my head. That'd be awesome to see them pull somebody like that, right?
Yeah. Also in the chat, Respect the Plight says John Goodman. I would definitely go for John Goodman as Kratos.
Yeah. He could be the World Serpent. How about that?
Ooh.
There we go. I mean, but I think it's important that if we're telling a story about a strong father-son relationship, we get one of the greatest dads ever. So, John Goodman, perfect. Call Amazon right now.
Get him in there.
Have we all seen Raising Kratos?
Yeah.
Yes.
The feature documentary.
It's been a while, but yeah, I've seen it.
It's amazing.
So something I have bemoaned on our show many a times is just the fact that I don't like how video games don't get a lot of really good kind of, special feature content.
Sure.
Some studios do it. I remember I thought back in 2007, it was literally groundbreaking that Uncharted had making of stuff you can unlock with the game. I think Raising Kratos is one of not just the most enjoyable documentaries I've ever seen, period, because it's such a feel-good story, but I loved video games getting this much exposure. And I was just kind of curious of any takeaways you might have had from Raising Kratos. Any thoughts, starting with Greg, that you might have had?
I thought it was a needed documentary, and I was glad to see PlayStation and Sony Santa Monica in the industry get behind it and treat it like a big thing that you should watch, and it was must-see viewing on YouTube, right, and get it out there. Because I think, we talk so much about the human element of games when we talk on Games Daily about crunch or, studio culture, toxicity, to then see it, right? And I think, even before that came out, Cory Barlog, of course, the head man on God of War 2018, he had put up that video of him I forget where on the international press tour, 4 a.m. his time, but the 9 a.m. embargo was about to go up Pacific time or whatever it was. And him clicking, okay, let's refresh, and seeing all the scores come in and start crying and being like, it's not that it's not that the Metacritic matters, but it does. Like, you know what I mean? That we made this, that we did this. Like, to see him cross that finish line is what catapulted Corey, into a stratosphere you don't see us treat our video game creators like, right? And granted, many times because a game is made by hundreds, if not thousands of people, depending on where you are at Ubisoft. And it's hard to put one figurehead on it. But to see Corey go from a guy that like had been around PlayStation forever, that I had known for a long time and talked to about different games, kissed him during a God of War live stream when he was working on what would become God of War 2018 and we didn't know it. Like, to see him catapulted into that Kojima, Druckmann, Miyamoto to an extent. Miyamoto's another level, but you understand what I mean of like, you say that name and you know that the developer and you know what that game is. Like, that's a big part of it because he treated that game launch and used the video assets and then the documentary to really establish like, hey, this is what it's like making a video game, because people don't know. And I say people, and I'm saying me, like, I talk to people and I interview people and I hear their stories, but like, I don't see it. I don't get to see what it looks like, 3 months in, some system's not working, what are you going to do? Or 3 months to go, some system's not working, what are you going to do? And like, to get those kind of glimpses are so important to understand really what a miracle it is we get any video games. We get video games and it's like, I can't believe they shipped it with this bug. And it's like, that is what they call a known shippable. They had to get the game out, and like, that's not a game breaker. Like, you should have seen the bugs that were in this before any of that happened.
Gotcha. Josh, what about you?
I don't know.
Good answer.
Good answer. No, I mean, I thought, like I said, the documentary was great. It's great to see just from beginning to end the amount of work that somebody puts into these things that we just love so much. And you see those people speed run a game and beat this game in like an hour or something like that, and it's just like, this guy worked years of his life in putting so much time and effort into this for people to break it and do that. And it's like, some people like look at that and they praise that and they respect it and whatnot too. But like, it's so great to see how much, because Corey, like, I believe he had a kid right before the game came out or during that time.
Son's very young at the start. If I remember. Greg, can you confirm?
I don't remember when Corey had his son, but yeah,
because it had to do with a lot of the narrative of the game, because it started to change a little bit. But it just seeing like how much time he had to spend away from his family to get this done, and then to see that it all paid off at the end. To see like all that hard work actually come to fruition, and that people just unanimously loved it. Like, it is like you said, it's a feel good moment. And it was one of those times where just watching that, it was almost like the entire gaming industry came together in celebration of this one thing.
Absolutely. Yes. Worth a watch. If you have not seen it, it's available in full for free on YouTube. Definitely recommend checking that out. So, focusing on Corey and his team, obviously we got God of War Ragnarok coming up very soon. Greg, what do we have in terms of hopes or predictions for the game? What do you have anything that you want to see, that you hope to see?
Yeah, my hope is to be surprised again and to have the unexpected, which I know sounds, trite, and obviously you expect that for every game. But my concern with God of War Ragnarok is that you're coming off of God of War 2018, which, is game of the year for a lot of people. My favorite current game, like, it's in rare air. It's on its own. And so to try to follow that up is so difficult. And I think you can look to Horizon this year of following up Horizon Zero Dawn. And I think, Horizon Forbidden West did outdo Zero Dawn. I think it's a hands down better game, but it was still a known quantity. Like, it didn't reinvent the wheel because, all right, you're still in this, more Stone Age like wild, right? Like, you're still using a lot of the same techniques and moves and weapons and things like that because the game hasn't gone to another universe, done anything differently there. And so it was very easy to play that and be like, okay, cool, it's more Horizon, and that's great. And I think it opens up, and I think it does a bunch of stuff to be better than that, but I don't think it goes leaps and bounds better than that. And so the fact that we've seen so little from Ragnarok, but what we have seen from Ragnarok, I wonder if you showed me out of context before I ever saw it, if you could convince me that was in God of War. And if some of that is like, of course, looking at God of War 2018 with rose tinted glasses. I haven't gone back and played it recently. I remember how stunning it looked and how amazing it looked back then. I haven't gone through and done the 4K footage of Ragnarok, yada yada yada. But like, it's the same way the internet was like, whoa, it's the same animation for him getting into the boat. Like, fuck off with that kind of shit. But it is also the fact of like, but if it is like doing the same things we did in God of War, is that enough that we're going to go, oh, it's great, it's more God of War, but that doesn't mean it's going to be in the Game of the Year conversation that, something like Elden Ring, when it blows doors off in terms of catching you off guard and, really driving that thing forward. So my hope is that this can be more than God of War, but that is such a tall order. So I don't want it to feel like I'm just playing part 2 of God of War. If that makes sense.
It's really weird because they said that this is going to be the end of the Norse saga. And like when you came out guns blazing, right? You didn't give us the Empire Strikes Back. You gave us A New Hope, which is good, but like now you need to finish it strong. And how do you come back from such a huge release of that, right? Like Ragnarok has to exceed all expectations, and if it is just more of the same, then it needs to sell you on the story. Like that story needs to be above and beyond what we've already received in the previous game, which is still a tall order.
Of course,
right?
Yeah,
right.
It's got, and that's what I hope. My hope is that everything and the little bit we've seen in trailers, right, is the first 3 hours of the game, and then it's Left Turn City, and so we get kind of a Metal Gear Solid 2 moment where all of a sudden we are Raiden, maybe we are Atreus, maybe it's thrown down the thing, maybe we're talking about Empire Strikes Back, maybe we get that midway through the game where all of a sudden Kratos is killed, and then we pick up with Atreus years later or something like that. Like, I don't write video games for a reason, I'm not that creative, but that's the kind of thing I'm looking for. Like, I want to be sitting there with the controller and be like, oh my god, I want another Blades of Chaos moment.
So I get you completely.
So Tom, what about you?
Yeah, I just want to say that the story is kind of the key thing. Like, for me, when I think of fast turnaround or just like important sequels like that, I think of Ocarina of Time to Majora's Mask. Majora reused a bunch of assets, but it delivered a story that was so singular that it didn't matter. So when it comes to that, I have every confidence that Corey and the team are going to put together a really compelling story. I just wonder, like, I presumed after when I played God of War for the first time, Ragnarok wasn't announced formally yet, and I was like, okay, so this is probably the start of a trilogy. I wonder how long this will take, because trilogies just make sense. Nope, 2 games and we're done. So it's like, all right. And we know that like the plot involves them freeing Tyr from his imprisonment, and they're overall seemingly out for Odin. So it's like, where are we going with this?
Yeah, we're gonna get moving pretty quick.
Is this too much to do in one game? But we'll see. We'll see. Yeah, but
but Ragnarok's coming out next year. But
we'll see.
What happens after Ragnarok, right? Like, where would you like to see this franchise go if it continues?
God of War versus Jesus, you know what I mean? Kratos is dead. Let's see what Atreus takes it straight to Jerusalem.
Blade of chaos into each palm.
Yeah, exactly.
Kratos comes rowing over in the boat, and then Noah's there and starts building the boat up and gets upgrades as you keep going.
Yeah. I don't know, man. And it's also the thing of like, I'd love to see them take time off. I don't want them to see, I mean, if they're passionate and that's what they want to do. And it's the same thing here, right? Where this, Ragnarok is not Corey doing the same job on it, right? Like Corey is I forget what his director title is now, but like there's a new game director on God of War that's pushing this forward. Like if the next game director or whoever wants to do another God of War and go with that, great. But I'd love to see them take more time off, because I think it's one of the reasons like God of War 2018 hit so hard. Granted, it hadn't been that long since Ascension and God of War 3 to an extent. But like, it had been long enough that we were ready for something new and different. And so I don't want this just to be that every 4 years, every 5 years, we get a new God of War. And it's like, cool, we're doing the same thing. I want to be surprised there too.
Sure. Just to confirm based on what you said, Eric Williams is the credited director
of
Ragnarok. No worries.
Have not committed that to memory yet.
Gotcha. Well, Josh, are we at the ultimate question?
We are.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, well, right. Yeah, we're at the. So with every episode of our podcast that we've done, we always come down to the final say. Do you skip, play, beat, or complete God of War 2018?
Oh, you complete God of War 2018. That's a fun platinum. Like, you go through, you do the Ravens, and it was that same thing too. Of, you put all this time into getting Kratos the best gear, the best armor, and the best whatever, and then to double back and fight all those Valkyries. Like that was so much fun too. Of like, they're hard if you want them to be. You can dial down the difficulty. Not that I ever did that, but you could, like there's a challenge for you even after. It's not just doing the same things or picking up just little things you missed. It's going through and having a great time and exploring that world. Yeah.
It wasn't collectathon fatigue
Yeah.
that you get in those Assassin's Creed games or any other giant open world game. It was one of those things I wanted to go and take out all the Ravens. I wanted to go and track down all of the Valkyries. I wanted to sit in the boat and just listen to Mimir the entire time.
Oh, dude, the amount of times I did that. Yeah, I was like, all right, chill. Finish your story. I want to hear this.
So, Josh, was that a complete from you as well?
Oh, yeah, 100%. I'm still on the process of platinuming it. I beat it, and then like Breath of the Wild was like there. You know what I mean? Like I still had to go back there. I was like I still had to go I had to go back and continue to keep playing Breath of the Wild at the time, and I was bouncing all over the place when that happened.
Sure. Absolutely. No, this is a unanimous complete from all three of us. I think that there is just something to find in every corner of this game that will engage you at minimum and wow you in just those, spectacular moments. Go explore all of it because it's absolutely worth it.
It's a wonderful world. Like it's not like too cumbersome. Like it's not, you don't get lost in it. Like you enjoy every place that you go to.
For sure.
Absolutely. I forgot one prediction / hope for Ragnarok. I want them to in no way dial back on Beer Belly Thor.
They are not going to do that. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, because everyone was like, that's not how the Thor I know looks. And it's like, this Thor drinks mead and smashes people's head in, and he doesn't care what he looks like. And I'm like, yo, go do this. So...
Greg, one thing before we sign off here at the end, I wanted to talk. You said you're going to be playing this before Ragnarok comes out.
That's my hope,
next year. Yeah. Is this story going to hit you any different now that you are a father?
I don't know. It's an interesting question. I really want to know if I get in there. I don't think so, because I think it connected already, you know what I mean, as a father or as a son, I guess, you know what I mean? Like, I think my dad, I know loves me, but my dad didn't show love the way my mom did necessarily, right? And so not that he was anywhere like, Kratos, don't worry, you know what I mean? He's not like giving me a blade and telling me to do better or anything like that. But there are those things of like, I think, the son be the father, the son kind of thing. And so it'll be interesting to see, yeah. But people are also expecting me to have Benjamin and immediately flip on like what I thought about The Last of Us. I do not. Joel is the bad guy. You know what I mean? Ellie wanted to give her life, god damn it.
Joel is the bad guy.
Yeah, no fights for me here.
So before we go as well, I have a couple quick questions for you, Greg.
Sure.
Since we've only ever spoken 2 times, I think, in the lifespan of
life.
Life, I guess. There was one time on Twitter where you and Jen posted up a picture of you guys going out on date night, and I actually sent out a picture from a year prior of me and my wife. We looked exactly the same. We were wearing the same outfits, like same pose, same everything. And then you actually, on the morning show, the one time, you actually gave me and my wife a best wishes thing with Cisco on the show. So thank you for that.
No problem.
But I have from the Facebook group, because I'm a huge component of the Facebook group, Jeff B says, remember to ask Greg if he thinks PlayStation will release Patapon on mobile devices.
I don't think so. I don't think it's happening anytime soon, sadly. There is a complete knockoff. A friend of mine, John, sent me that is like this weird, like, it's one of those games where they show you the ad before it, and it's like, does that actually look like the game? But it was literally Patapon, but it was like a little more chibi, but they were the dots and the eyeballs. I was like, what is this? What the hell's going on? But neither of us got it, so I don't know.
You've already answered my question that Resident Evil 4 is ridiculously overhyped. Yep. And then, is Wario our boy?
Oh yeah, we're down with Wario.
Yeah,
no,
Wario. Tom. There's
What?
2 people that fuck in this world, okay? And it's Wario and Earthworm Jim, okay?
It's
These
true.
2 guys.
That's true. That's accurate.
Well, then there's no hope for any of us then. If you're the Princess of Prowess, so
Wario farts when he wants to and rides a motorbike. What don't you like?
Remember in the Subspace Emissary when he beats up and bullies Ness and Lucas?
he kidnaps children. He's a horrible man.
Haven't we all had? I mean, we all had the thoughts. We've all had the thought before.
So with that, there you have it. If you've enjoyed this episode of Cast to the Past, we are on all podcast streaming services.
That's right. And if you'd like to watch this in video form or see more great gaming content from us, check us out on YouTube at Bad Elephant Gaming. It's our little umbrella that Cast of the Past and a bunch of other original shows that Josh and I make lives under. And if you can give us maybe a subscribe on there, that'd be really nice. We're trying to hit that big 100. So any help you could give would be big support.
Go over there and subscribe. God damn it.
Yeah, and we also have a website as well. It's badelephantgaming.com. And currently right now, as a thank you for letting us be on the show here, we are actually having a sale on our merch store where you can get some awesome Cast of the Past merch and Bad Elephant Gaming merch there. Ridiculously reduced. I think everything's like $10 to $15 off of all of the original stuff, the prices that we have on there too. So badelephantgaming.com.
It's a really great logo for Cast of the Past, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Producer Becca. I'll produce Becca with that.
Oh, yeah, my wife, producer Becca, the marketing mama herself.
Marketing mama. Love that this was said on this stream. But finally, we are, one more thing. We are on Twitch at twitch.tv/badelephantgaming. And tonight I'm kicking off the road to WrestleMania, baby.
Woo!
I'm doing my first playthrough of WWE 2K22. Greg, you've been playing that on stream. Feeling pretty good about it?
I love it. I can't wait to get back to more of it.
Fantastic. I'm really excited to start it off. So that will be either 8:30 or 9 p.m. EST tonight if you want to check it out. Really would appreciate if you were there too.
And until next time, this has been Josh.
And
Greg,
Thom.
this is when you say your name.
After, am I sandwiching you guys or am I at the end?
Yeah, you sandwich us.
Okay, do it again.
And until next time, this has been Josh.
Greg.
And I'm Thom.
And we will see you in the future. While we boot up the Triflex capacitor, please take some time to subscribe to the show and leave us a review wherever you listen. This show is nothing without you, and any support helps.
If you want to connect with us and discuss the past, present, or future of gaming, check out Bad Elephant Gaming on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And don't forget to watch our other videos on YouTube, where we bring you gaming experiences you'll never forget.
We also have a Twitch channel where we play games for the show and for fun. Come chat with us anytime at twitch.tv/badelephantgaming.
Thanks for listening.
And until next time, we'll see you in the future.